Morning folks, it's Ian here with a slightly different video. I'm going to have a go at doing a sort of a preview of a game that I've recently become interested in, and a bit of a sort of unboxing-y type thing. And that game is Umbra Turris. It's by Spellcrow, who make, or have done for quite a long time actually, sort of really cool, individual, quite unique miniatures and miniature parts out of resin. They're one of the Polish companies. They do some really good stuff actually. And recently there's been a bit of a buzz around a skirmish game they've made. Now, anybody that knows me will know that I love myself a good 28mm skirmish game. But this one is one that sort of was just on the periphery. Thought, oh yeah, that looks quite cute. The sort of thing that I thought maybe my son might play with me. He's very into fantasy and not into to any of the other genres really. We play Frostgrave quite a bit. So I thought it might be worth a look, but it sort of just got left to one side. And then Andy happened to mention it on one of the groups. In fact, no, it wasn't a group. We were just chatting about something, and he mentioned that Umbra Turris was something that was starting to build a bit of a head of steam. And I thought, right, let's take the plunge and let's have a look at it. The entry level to the game is fairly low. The rules are free online. I'm sure Andy can link those below. And then all you need really is the usual playing surface and the miniatures. There's also some sets of cards which enhance the game, which I thought, well, I might as well buy those as well. And great, I thought. So I ordered those last week and they came yesterday, and they came in this box, and I thought, hang on, I've ordered a rule book and miniatures and things, and that looks actually like quite a small box to me. So I'll show you why it's small just now. The first reason why that box was small, or mainly the main reason why that box was small, was the rule book. There it is. It's teeny. It's a really nice size of the rule book, form factor, whatever you want to call it, and it's a really lovely thing. The first thing that struck me about the stuff that came in the box was the production values, and for one of the small game companies, really small game companies, and a new game, I thought this is actually really, really good quality. It's a hardback book. It's got the sort of matte cover that I like. It's got some original artwork on there, which is very, I think, old hammer, sort of 80s, early 90s at a push, GW fancy type style. And that was the era that I grew up in. I really like it. And that is repeated throughout. So this sort of slightly cod fantasy style is the style of the game, and the miniatures are also done in that sort of old hammer style, and they are brilliant, which I'll come to in a bit. But the rulebook itself, I have read this because you can get it as a PDF online, and I'm sure we can link to that in the comments. But really high production value. It's just like a little hardback book that we used to get back in the old days when books were really a thing, and it's really nicely done. Again, really high production values. There's original art. It is black and white inside, but that's okay. Some of the art is really good. There's some background. There's a map. How cool is that? And then the rest is the rules, and the rules, I've not played a game yet, so I can't really comment how it plays, but the rules are pretty meaty actually. But in a good way. It reminds me a little bit of a sort of souped up Mordheim, and that might get some people excited if they're of the same age as me. But as you go through, there's the sort of standard rules that you'd expect about moving and shooting and fighting, and then we get on to magic, and magic's divided up into domains, again with lots of their own spells, and actually they're really different, and I really like the look of some of those. And then psychology, there's an order mechanic, so you have a leader in your group who can give out orders. I'm not quite sure what that does, I can't remember, but it's a thing. Then there's some special rules, sort of generalized ones, and then we get into the really meaty bit of the game, which is creating the party. And this is the bit that I really like. It's almost like creating characters for an RPG, and there's a lot of that feel about it actually. So the first thing you do is decide on your point size, or I forget what they call them in here, DCs, and I don't know, dragon coins or something. So how many points you're going to choose. Then you choose alignment. And I thought that was really good because that limits a few things. It limits what models you can include, but you don't just have to include a race. You can include models that have any of that alignment, which was quite clever because there's some really nice models, which again I'll come on to in a bit. And then the alignment of your party gives the whole party some sort of buff or ability. And then once you've chosen that, you choose the races that are going to be in your party. So they don't all have to be the same. Some are very rare. So Voraks here are sort of like birdmen, and Tigerians are exactly what they sound, tiger people, but they're rare, so you can only have 2 of those in your party, as are half giants and dark fawns and things. But each of you can choose according to the model that you're using, the model's race. So if I wanted an elven mage, I'd say, right, I'm going to choose an elf here, and its cost is 57. Great, so I'd price up all the races, and all the races have different stat lines. Then we get to a bit later, well, and then after they all have different stat lines, but again, all the different races and sub-races have little abilities of their own. So we've got an ability for the party from the alignment, and now we're getting to an ability for the race they are. So if you're playing humans, great, but there's 1, 2, 3, there's 5 different types of human that you can play, and each of those has a different rule. There's a couple of different types of elves, dwarves, a couple of those, 3 different sorts of orcs, goblins, halflings, etc, etc, etc. So already your party is becoming unique by the combination of races that you have in it and the alignment. And then we get to another bit, professions. So if I said, as I said before, I want an elven mage, I'd pay for my elf, and then I would pay out of my points budget the cost for his mage profession, and that will cost me an extra 51 coins. Or if I'm using an elf, because they're magic-y sorts of things, it only costs me 41, and that gives me the mage ability, which gives me all the rules associated with mages. And there are loads of professions, so you can really tailor your little party to A, the models you've got, and B, what you want it to be and what you want it to play like. Again, I've not played it, so I can't comment on that, but it's this sort of party creation stage. It's not just, here's 100 points and I'll choose 5 different models that fit up to 100. I think you've got to really think carefully about it. You can have them belong to a guild, which again gives them other benefits, and so on and so on. And then we get to equipment. You can equip them how you want. There's a cost for each of those. So like I said, it really is more like sort of RPG character creation, creating a party. And then you get to the game bit, and there are plenty of different game modes. Terrain setup is part of the game. Deployment zones change, and I'll come back to the cards in a bit when we get to the cards section. But in essence, the rule book is a perfect size to fit on the table. It's dead cute. I love the sort of production value of it is really high, and I love the sort of old hammer feel of the art and the sort of general feel of the book and the game from that point of view. So far, really impressed. So the next thing that was in my box was these 3 sets of cards. Now, when I ordered these, I thought, right, these are about £9 a box, which is sort of all right for a pack of cards. If you look at any of the collectible card games or the living card games, you know, a data pack of cards probably costs you about a tenner or thereabouts. So it wasn't too bad. But I got a bit of a nice surprise when I ordered it. Oh, there's 3 different types, by the way. There's magic, quest, and terrain. These are sort of in-game helpers for magic-y spells and stuff. I'll show you what's in there in a minute. The quest cards are missions, so that's really interesting because you can play where you each have a secret mission to achieve, and that gives you victory points, or triumph points as they're called in this game. And terrain is used in the setup. So the terrain cards actually tell you which area of the city of Umbra Turris you're playing in, and it has an effect in game as to various sort of global effects, things like that. So I'll take them one by one because, again, really high production value for a small company. Some lovely art on these. And I thought, well, this feels a bit light. And then I looked at the back and thought, 18 cards, that's nothing. So I opened it up, and this is where I got a nice surprise because I hadn't looked properly when I was ordering on the internet. There's not only cards, but there are also resin pieces in there. And I'll show you what they are in a minute. But first, the cards themselves. These are all magic items. So, and if you look at the art on them, it's really good. They don't look a million miles away from the quality of a certain extremely popular magic game where you gather cards together and things like that. You know what I'm talking about. But there's lovely art on there, really evocative, really colourful. And each of these is a magical item, which has an effect. And two of those, one is an owl, and I can't find the other one. Anyway, there's another one that allows you to summon like a magic imp. There you go, magic spawn. Beginning of your chosen cycle, place a magic spawn beside your mage. So that brings me to, and there's 18 cards there, for which, you know, £8-9 is a little bit steep. But let me get to this. I thought, this is ace. So in here, I know we've not looked at any miniatures yet, we'll do that in a bit, are two minis for the spell effects that I mentioned on the cards. There's your magic spawn that you can summon. Lots of teeth and lots of eyes. And here's a pretty cool owl that you can summon at the start of the game as well with one of the magic items. So I was really chuffed with that. I thought that's really cool. You get cards that expand the game, but you also get minis that help you represent some of that on the tabletop. And that's followed through in the other card sets as well. So they were the magic cards that had the magic effects models in there. Let's do the terrain cards next. So the terrain cards are, as I said, all about the table setup and how the mission is going to play out according to what cards you pull out of here. And this is a smaller set. So again, I thought, oh wow, there's resin bits in here as well. That's pretty cool. So if we take the cards out, you can see each of these, you basically shuffle these and then draw them to see where it is that you're playing in game. So an old ruined district, haunted graveyard, mysterious deep woods, somewhere in the forest glades, a big empty square. So all of these are places that you play and set up, but you'll also see that there are two different effects. So if you're in the graveyard, there's a bonus to evil parties because you get 2 additional torment dice. But good only starts with one starts with 1 fewer blessing dice, and they're things that you can use to replace dice rolls in the game. So each of these different areas has an effect differently on how your alignment of your party plays out. I don't think they're massive effects, but they're enough to give some interest, that's for sure. So they're the cards that are in the terrain pack. And then there are, hang on, make sure I've not sleeved these yet, so I need to make sure I keep them pristine. And then there's a load of resin in here. First one are some really nice, anybody that's had any Spellcrow stuff before will know that their resin's really good quality and their sculpts are really nice. So you get a couple of objectives casts which are used in game, obviously. So there's a treasure chest, a crate and a barrel, and there's 2 of each of those. And you also get bases to put them on, which, you know, that's all very nice. And they're actually resin. I'm not sure why they're resin because most of the other bases are just plastic. But obviously, so that's 6 objective markers that come with the terrain pack. I won't bother putting those in the box. And then the last box of cards is the quest cards. And again, little pack of cards. And remember, these are the secret missions that you get to pick. Well, you don't get to pick, you shuffle a card and they give you the mission or victory points in game. I had to pause the camera there because apparently I'm unable to open a plastic bag. But yeah, so here are the cards. So what you would do again is you would shuffle these, and each of them has a different mission on them. So everyone would take a card from the shuffle pack, and it tells you what your missions are. So reveal this card for the battle, choose a card from the opponent's item deck, remove it from play. So you've got a poltergeist that's nicking your opponent's magic items straight away. Select a mage. If your leader or mage defeat the enemy mage in combat at the beginning of the new cycle, you gain 2 triumph points. So there's how many? There's about 20 of these, I think, 18. So the variety that's introduced into the game already is a little bit like the variety in a game like Eden, where everyone's got hidden objectives to carry out. And so that's making each game different again, not only because your parties are different and will play differently, but because they're trying to achieve different things. So I thought they were really good. I really like a game that has hidden or different objectives for each player. And again, we've got some resin bits. This time they're markers. I think these are quite funny. When you kill a character in game, you don't remove the model immediately. You put a marker next to them because other characters have the opportunity during that turn to save them with magic or healing potions, things like that. So you're supposed to put a death marker next to them. And in this bag of the quests, they put these massive skull death markers, again in resin. There's 6 of those. So they're quite funny. And one of the other mechanics in the game is that characters can hide. So they can, or some of them can carry out an action to go hidden and stealthy. And these are some nice little resin counters for models that have gone hidden. So these don't directly relate to the mission cards, it has to be said. But they are useful for the game anyway, and again, sort of make that box absolutely worth the money that you pay for it. So they're the 3 sets of cards. There are other expansions to the game already, so you can see the direction that Spellcrow want to grow with this, with releasing little packs like this with cards and a few models in that give you different scenarios or maybe different ways to buff parties and things like that. But these are the basic ones that I think you would want to start with when you're first setting out playing the game. And as I said, I've got a full band of miniatures, all 3 sets of cards, and the rule book, which you can get as a free PDF online for just over 50 quid. So it's not a bad entry point to the game. So we'll have a look at miniatures next. So this is a bit I guess most people will be most interested in, is the minis themselves. Because I wasn't sure whether I was going to do very much with this game, I ordered 1 little warband of miniatures. Usually I can't help myself and get at least 2 factions, but I may have put another order in, having opened this box almost immediately, having seen the quality of these. But rather than get one of the boxes of wood elves or dwarves or gnomes or goblins or the other things that Spellcrow have, I thought I'd get a mixed one because I want to paint a few different miniatures just to see what they're like. And they come in this sort of they haven't got unique art on this box. So these are sort of curated collections of miniatures that make a warband. And on the Spellcrow site, you can download a ready-made warband roster for these guys. But obviously, because of the way the party creation is so complex, you can use these for making your own party as well. But I thought they were a nice starting point just for me to check out when I wasn't sure about whether this would be something that I wanted to play very often or not. So that's why it's an unbranded box, but I was really, really happy with the quality of the stuff inside. So this is the City Mercenaries box set. and it's got a few different minis in it. It's got 6 different minis, and I'll just take them all out and I'll show you them because they're really, really cute. They all come in their own baggie, but as you'd expect from Spellcrow, really nice casts and really nice sculpts. So this guy is a gnome musketeer, and you can probably see what I mean by that sort of old hammer 80s feel. They're all on slotter bases, which is interesting. I probably won't use the slotter bases. I'll probably use some resin bases and cut them off and glue them on. But the sculpts are brilliant, and the quality of the cast is excellent as well. As you can see there, there's a little bit of flash to remove, but really not very much. So that's him. And then who have we got? Anybody of a certain age will remember the old-fashioned elven war dancers that came out from GW, and I think some of the style of some of these minis is actually quite similar to that. So here's an elf with an axe and a mohawk. So yeah, he's obviously a fightery sort of person. So there's him. Again, in his own baggie with his own base. Who have we got here? Ah, yes. So this chap is another elf with a bow and a sort of lantern. I think he's like an adventurer or something like that. He's not a mage. I can't really remember. I'll have to go back and have a look. But again, really nice cast, really nice sculpt. He looks quite grumpy actually. No or very little trimming to do. No mould lines. Very nice. I'll save those two because they're my favourites. We've got Mr. Fighty Pants here, and this is a good faction, by the way. So I can play other good things next to them. The one not a faction, these are all classed as good miniatures. This is a heavily armoured guy with a big sword, so a knight of some sort. He looks great. The only issue I'm going to have here, I've noticed, is this attachment point to a very fine part of his sword is actually much thicker than the sword itself, so I have to be really careful how I remove that. So there's a little bit of work to do on him, but again, very little to complain about elsewhere. There's no mould lines. There's only the tiniest bit of resin flash. So that's great. And then these two are my favourite two in this box. This is my little roguey type thiefy gnome. And quite a grumpy face. Has a bag of something there, a little dagger, and there's like a scenery piece with her, or him rather, and so I'll build that onto the base just to give it, because I think that model will look really good when it's painted, but again, fab quality. And the last one is absolutely my favourite. I think this epitomises that sort of old school fantasy aesthetic. This is my gnome wizardess with preposterous headgear, a great big staff with, I think, a skull on the end. I'm not sure. I'll have to work out what that is. It might be fire actually. And then I don't know if you can see, but there's a dragon sculpted here as well. That's her familiar. So I really love that model. I think she's going to be brilliant and might save her till last. So there you go. That's 6 really high quality resin models, lovely sculpts, lovely casts. I think it was £22 maybe of that order anyway. So between the models, the rules, which look really chunky, and the production value of all the stuff, and the fact that the card packs have the little resin pieces in them that will add to the game as well, I'm really impressed with Umbra Turris so far. I'm dying to see how it plays. As I said, I might have ordered another box or so of miniatures just because I want to be able to pad this out and give myself some flexibility in terms of list building, because that's a really, obviously, having read the rules, integral part of the game, and the bits I think that makes it quite unique. So I'm not going to jump straight into painting these. I've got some giant stompy robots to finish next week and to power through, but these are definitely next up in my queue after that. So watch this space for a bit more Umbra Turris content. And then if at some point Andy and I can get together for a game, I'm sure we can do some sort of bat rep for it as well. Hey Andy. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll stick some hobby vlogs about this stuff on when I get to it. All right, thanks folks, see you.